know you've written about sleep and weight. Can you talk to us a bit about that?
Oh, absolutely. And I think this sleep represents a very and fairly underestimated component to metabolic health. We know that the relationship between sleep and weight gain is very, very strong, very robust, and fairly consistent across studies. And I'd say that 4 primary mechanisms link sleep with metabolic health and metabolic health with sleep. The first is the longer you're up, the more opportunities you have to eat, right? So there's just this environmental component. I want you to reflect back on a time when you pulled an all-nighter or got less than, 7 to 9 hours of sleep. You probably didn't binge on arugula, right? you probably ate fairly specific types of food that we'll get to in a moment. But my point is, the longer you're up, the more opportunities you have to eat. That's just the first mechanism linking these two things. The second is with sleep deprivation, we see fairly consistent patterns in certain appetite governing hormones. Specifically, we see an increase in a hormone called ghrelin. And ghrelin, you can imagine like your stomach is hungry and angry because it's hungry. So ghrelin stimulates our appetite. Okay, so we see an increase in ghrelin. And then we see a decrease in something called leptin, a hormone called leptin. And you can remember leptin by L, lean, like your stomach is lean. Leptin tells us we've had enough to eat. So when we are sleep deprived, we see an increase in the hormone that increases our appetite and a decrease in the hormone that tells us we're full and satisfied. Another factor here, at least from a hormonal perspective, includes the increase of that hormone cortisol, right? We've all heard of cortisol before, the stress hormone. And certainly in reasonable and low levels, cortisol has an adaptive benefit. But when it exceeds a certain amount, it can certainly lead to behaviors that are maladaptive, like emotionally eating and eating impulsively. So second mechanism of action includes the dysregulation of appetite governing hormones, namely leptin, ghrelin, and cortisol. The third has to do with the food choices we make by virtue of our body trying to achieve homeostasis. So the energy that we don't get from sleep, our body seeks out in food, and more specifically, certain types of foods that are highly palatable, highly caloric, typically carb-based, sugary, and convenient. And what happens is that in the body's attempt to achieve homeostasis, it seeks out these quick and dirty sources of energy, the donut, the cheeseburger, the brownie, such that your blood sugar spikes, you get that energy that you need, and then you crash. And it's this pattern of extreme peaks and valleys in our blood glucose levels that can set the stage for things like metabolic syndrome and diabetes. So we tend to make worse food choices when we are sleep deprived. And those food choices typically include highly palatable, highly caloric foods. The fourth mechanism includes this mechanism of motivation. When you are sleep deprived, it hijacks you of your motivation to engage in certain health behaviors like exercise or prepare your own meals, right? When we are sleep deprived, we are much more likely to drive through the drive-through. We are much more likely to forego our exercise routine. And if we do have the wherewithal and the bandwidth to engage that exercise routine, the quality and the vigorousness of that routine will be significantly decreased. So the fourth mechanism includes the hijacking of your motivation to engage in health behaviors and to do those behaviors thoroughly and vigorously. So those are the 4 primary, there are others, but those are the 4 primary mechanisms through which sleep deprivation and metabolic health are intimately and inextricably bound. Hormone dysregulation, environmental factors, the drive for homeostasis, and the hijacking of motivation. So fun and convenient fact, if you are trying to lose weight, the best thing you can do is get your recommended dose of sleep. And that varies across people, that varies across age, but generally people over the age of 65 need 7 to 8, adults and adolescents between 7 to 9. So if you want to lose weight, go to sleep.